Alright, so in this video we're going to go over creating a simple enemy AI. And so what this enemy will do is it'll have a kind of range that it can kind of patrol. So it'll pick random locations, go to those locations, and then when it sees you, it's going to run at you and then do an attack to deal some damage. So there's a bunch of components that make this up, but we'll go through them one by one. So first thing I recommend doing is going ahead and making a new folder for all of the different bits and pieces that are needed for this blueprint. Now, to get you started, if you check in our class Google Drive, you will find a folder of resources that I want you to download and go ahead and import into your project. So these are going to be an enemy mesh along with a couple animations that we'll use in this demo. So once you go download those, you should see enemy mesh, enemy attack, enemy run, enemy walk. We're going to go ahead and import those now. So first one I'm going to bring in is the enemy mesh. I'm just going to drag and drop that into my enemy AI folder. I'm going to get this import options here, and we're just going to go down to the skeletal meshes section and make sure that import skeletal mesh is checked on, and we'll go ahead and import. So when we import, it's going to give us a bunch of stuff, but you know, if it has all these things, that means it works. So we're looking for this skeletal mesh. Now the skeletal mesh is the actual mesh. You know, you would, in theory, if you were going to like put one in the scene, place it in the scene. As you can see, mine's huge. Yours may not be, but we can, cross that bridge in a moment here. Next, it's going to have a physics asset and the skeleton. And then you may also get this animation sequence. And if you do, go ahead and delete that because we do not need it. And we rather get rid of things that are extra just to not clutter our, our workspace here. So after we have that in, this is the mesh we're going to work from. We're going to go ahead and import the other animations. So we imported this enemy mesh first. Let's go ahead and grab the attack, run, walk, import those. We're going to get our import settings again. And this time we're going to make sure that import only animations is checked on. The skeleton is our enemy mesh skeleton. And then just for good measure, down where it says import skeletal meshes, just uncheck that, import, and you know it works if the only things that are added are enemy attack, enemy run, enemy walk animation sequences. And if you were to open one of those up, you can see our guy walking around here. So right away, if I open my skeletal mesh, you can see in the bottom right hand corner here we have a couple material slots, so we're just going to go hook up the materials quick. In some cases, when you import them, they'll already have a material created and connected, but if they don't, we can go ahead and just create one quick. So I'm just going to grab this skeleton zombie diffuse texture right here. I'm going to right click it. I'm going to create a material. I'm not going to name it. I'm going to open it up. We should get this, and then I'm just going to grab the normal map here, bring in the normal map, grab this glow map, bring that in, and then grab this specular map and bring that in. And then with those in our material, we can go ahead and plug in the specular to the specular, the normals to the normals, and the glow map goes with the emissive color. Then we're also going to grab this the alpha channel of our color map here and plug that into the opacity mask here. Now it's grayed out at the moment, but if we select this big output node and then go to the left hand side, we can change the blend mode from opaque to masked. And then if we apply and save it, can close out of it, we can now, here's our skeletal mesh opened up. Here are those two material slots. We can now just take our material, drag and drop it in. There's our guy with textures. So we can save it, and we're good to get started. Next little prerequisite thing we'll do is we're going to go ahead and open up our third person character blueprints, or your first person, so it depends on your project. And all we're going to do here is we're just going to create a health variable. So if we go to our variables list on the left-hand side at the bottom, find our little variables section, hit the plus icon to create a new variable, and just call this something like player health, and then make the type a float. And then if you select it, go over to the details on the right. At the bottom, we can set the default value to 100. If it doesn't let you input anything, just go ahead and compile your blueprint first, and then you should be able to set the default value as 100. So, while we create this, every time we do our attack, we're going to basically be taking health away from our player. And then we could do something with that down the road. Great. So with our mesh imported and our variable created in our third person here, we can get started. So I'm just going to put this here, and let's get started. So I'm going to build this blueprint for the enemy AI inside of this folder here. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to create a new blueprint class. Now usually we use the actor. This time we're going to use the character. And because we're going to use the character, it's going to give us access to some movement abilities which we would want for this enemy here. So I'm going to select the character, and I'm going to call this BP enemy AI. I'll just add demo for mine, open it up, and we can get going. So first thing, we'll have a look at the different components that make this up. If we look in our components list, we have a capsule, which is their collider, an arrow, which will point forward, make note of which direction's forward, and then the mesh this is a skeletal mesh component, and it's currently unassigned to anything, so we can right away go ahead and go find that skeletal mesh asset, hit the drop down here, and we should be able to find our enemy mesh skeletal mesh. If we select that, it'll now add them to the scene. So as you can see, mine imported really, really big, but first thing we'll do either way is we'll just go ahead, I'm going to scale him down, 0.0, scale him down to size, and then go ahead and reposition your mesh so that his feet match the the bottom of your collider, because that's where they're gonna collide with the ground. And then make note of that forward arrow, so go ahead and make sure you rotate your character so he's pointed in the correct direction. So we got our mesh in. And then this character movement component, this just enables them to move around the scene, so we're going to be utilizing that later. So let's go ahead, select our mesh again, and then let's go in the details up to that animation section. So right now the animation mode is set to use an animation blueprint, which we would have to set up individually, but we're going to make it easy on ourselves and just switch it to use an animation asset. And then right here it's the anim to play. If we hit the drop down, it's going to show us all the animations linked to this skeleton. So because we have that all set up, we have our attack, run, and our walk. So I'm just going to select the walk, as that's going to be kind of our enemy's default state. It's going to be walking. Great. So with that in, we should be good to start making out our little code here. Let's hop to the event graph. So in the event graph, let's start with a couple of things. So first thing I want to make is the patrol event. So this is going to be the kind of main thing that makes our enemy start from a location, move to another location. So let's go ahead and clear out the space, and then let's right click and grab a custom event. So custom events we can name and use ourselves. So this one is going to be called patrol. So whenever we call the patrol event, we're going to run this series of things. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to get random location in navigable radius. So as advertised, we assign a radius. I'm going to set it something pretty high, like 2000. And then it's going to pick a location in that radius, and then inevitably we'll move to that location. So the radius is 2000 for now. You can adjust that depending on your needs. And then the origin, go ahead and drag out from the origin, and we're going to get actor location. Great. So when we have our actor location, So it's going to start, it's going to look at where our player or where our enemy currently is, pick a location, and go from there. And then we got to make him actually move. So to make him move, we're going to use a node called AI Move 2. So AI Move 2 will choose a pawn and move him to a location. So the pawn right here, we're going to drag out from there, and we're going to do just type self, and that will give it a reference to itself, because when it runs this command, it wants to move itself. And then where are we moving to? We're moving to our random location we just chose. Great. And then after we get to our location, we need to do it again. Pick a new location and move to it. So we can do that by, out of our AI Move To, we can just run our patrol custom event. There we go. So you can see we got a bit of a loop going on here. So patrol, pick a location, move to that location, patrol again. So, this is a custom event, so by default there's nothing starting it initially, nothing to trigger it for the first time. So we're going to trigger it off of the event begin play. So let's go ahead and add that in. So we'll grab our event begin play. And then out of here, we're actually going to do a little extra step here, and this is to set us up down the road. We're going to grab a reference to our player character, so my third person blueprint. So out of my event begin play, I'm going to cast to my BP underscore third person character. So remember, I'm using the third person character. If you're using the first person, it would be first person instead of third. So make sure you grab the third person character and not the class or the animation one. Just we want BP underscore third person character. For the object, we're going to get player character. And now to convert this into a reference that we can use later, we're just going to right click this as BP third person character, promote it to a variable. It'll plug it in just like this. And then finally, out of that, we can run our patrol event. So when we begin play, so when we start up, we're going to create a reference to our character, which you can see has popped up down here. And then we'll start our patrol event. In our patrol event, we'll start moving location by location. So let's test it out, see how it's working. So I'm going to compile and save my blueprint, move it off to the side, and I'm going to pick an area. Oh, let me get rid of that. I got this little section here that's going to be where my player moves around. Just going to get rid of that wall. So I'm going to take my blueprint, add it into the scene, and so if we press play right now, our character's going to... Oh, we got a little error, that's fine. Begin play, patrol, boom. Should be fine. Let's open up our blueprint again quick. File, event begin play, patrol, AI Move To, active location, patrol. Oh, that's it. Okay, see on our AI Move To, when we run our patrol event again, we're running it out of this first one. So it's going to try to patrol again before it even finishes patrolling. So if we just swap it to the on success instead, now it'll only run the patrol event again when it successfully gets to its destination. So if we compile, we save, we should be able to play now, and we should just see him walking. So he's not actually going anywhere yet. We just want to make sure he's, moving, because we need to add one more component to our scene. So what we need to add, if we go to our little plus icon up here, if we search up nav mesh, N-A-V mesh should be the first option. We need a nav mesh bounds volume. So what this does is it basically lets us define where a AI can move around, like where is a valid location for them to choose. So if we just get this volume and then make it really, really big and cover the area we want our enemy to be able to move around in. So for in my case, I want him in this front area. Scale it up nice and big, make sure it intersects the ground. And then if you press P on the keyboard, it's actually going to give you a little preview of where the enemy can move. So any of these green areas is where our enemy will be able to move to. So with that in place, now we should be, if we play, we should see, went a little too far away. Let me go back up, but you saw him moving for a second there. Now he should start moving around. So you can see it's just like picking a location, going there, picking a new location, going there. So right off the bat, I think we can do a couple things. So he was kind of moving pretty quickly, so let's slow him down a bit. So to control the speed at which he goes, we have to adjust the character movement. So if we select our character movement component, go down to the walking section, then go to the max walk speed, we can set that to 200. And 200, after testing, felt like a pretty good speed. So if we play again, okay, now his speed kind of matches his walk a lot better, which is great. But still, you know, so he's moving around now. He's successfully patrolling, but he's not chasing us yet. So let's start setting up the chase. Because right now he has no eyes. He can't actually see us. So let's add that in. So what is going to enable him to see is what's called the pawn sensing component. So if we go up to our components list, press add, and then we do pawn sensing. Add that to our character. And then if we go look at the viewport, select that pawn sensing, and zoom out a little bit, we can kind of see what we got going here. So all of these different volumes are just enable our guy here to basically set, see, and hear things. So if you go over to this AI section with it selected in the details, if we adjust the peripheral angle, you know, we're basically adjusting a cone in front of our enemy here that is like where he can see. So we can adjust the radius, you know, the distance he can see, and then the peripheral angle. So like how, you know, can he see like full 180 degrees, or does he have a more narrow field of view? So I'm just going to leave it big just to make sure everything's working well. But feel free to play with those values. You can probably leave the other values alone for now, because we're just dealing with this site. But I want to make sure you can see us, so I'm just going to leave it nice and big. Great. So back to our event graph. So quick organization. I'm just going to outline these. Press C on the keyboard to put a box around them. Just to keep my sections a little organized. Start patrol. And then this is the patrol event. Great. So if we right-click our pawn sensing, and we add an event, we can add the on-see pawn event. So this would trigger whenever our enemy sees a pawn. Now our player is a pawn, so it would trigger this event. So when the enemy sees us, we're going to do a couple things. So first thing, out of the pawn sensing, we're going to grab a sequence. And as you can imagine, a sequence is just like a little order of operations. You know, it's going to do the first one, then the second one in order. So first thing we need to do is we need to make our enemy start running. So we need to swap to the running animation, and we need to speed him up. So out of the then 0, so this first option, we're going to grab a do once. Now this do once node is going to just give us a little more control. Then out of the do once, we're going to grab a play animation, and you should see play animation mesh. Now where it says mesh right there, that's saying it's directly linked to our mesh up here. So grab that one, and you should see it already has a little reference to our mesh. And then we want to select the animation we want to play. And in our case, we want to do our run. So if we search run, we should be able to find the one linked to our skeletal mesh. Plug that in, and then let's make sure we turn on looping as well, so it doesn't just play one time. And then after that, we need to set the max speed to a higher value so we can move quicker. So to do that, we need a reference to our character movement component. So if we just take our character movement up here, drag and drop it in to get a reference to it, we can drag out from there and we can search up set max walk speed. And now we grab this set node, go ahead and plug it into the play animation node, and then set that max walk speed up to something like 600. Again, you can play with these values, to get something you like. Make sure you're staying organized. And then for the do once to work, as you can imagine, it basically, when it runs it, it's only going to do this one time. But we need an ability to reset it. So let's quickly make another custom event and call this can chase, and then plug that into the reset. So whenever we run this can chase event, it's going to reset the do once, which will enable us to kind of reset ourselves to the walking animation. We'll see that come into play here shortly. Great. So now that we're set to run, now that we're running, we need to locate the player and run to them. So we're going to do that out of our second sequence part here. So first step to that is another AI move to. This time for the pawn, for the pawn, again, is going to be a self, a reference to themselves, so they can, they're the ones running. The destination is, we're going to leave blank, but this time we're going to give them a target actor. So they're going to look at where that actor is and run at them. So when we have this on see pawn event trigger, it's going to give us a pawn output here, which is just going to, tell it what pawn it saw. So if we plug that in as the target actor, our enemy will now run to our player. Great. Alright, so after the AI move to, again, we got to do a couple more things. We're going to do out of the first one this time, we're going to grab what's called a triggerable delay. And then make sure to set that to 2 seconds. So what this basically allows us to do is every time we start moving at the player, we're going to wait up to 2 seconds, and if we no longer see the player, we're going to continue down the line. But if we do see the player, we're going to basically keep moving at them. So this just enables it to continuously move at the player. But after that 2 seconds, so let's say we hide behind a wall and they don't have sight of us for 2 seconds, we're going to go back to walking and continue patrolling. So after that 2 seconds, we're going to start by, we're going to play animation, mesh. Again, the mesh was just referencing our skeletal mesh. For the animation, we're going to grab our walk, our enemy walk, make sure it's looping is turned on, and then we're again going to grab a reference to our character movement, and we're going to set max walk speed down to our walking speed, which we had at 200. So we're going to go basically back to walking. And then after we reset to walking, so once we're walking again, we're ready to start patrolling again. But before that, we need to run our can chase custom event, which will reset our ability to start chasing, and then after we can start patrolling again. Great. So this, will trigger back this loop of patrolling over and over again. Awesome. So there we go. So right now, if we compile, if we save, what should happen is our enemy should start patrolling, and then if he sees us, he's going to start running, and then he's going to move in our direction. And he's going to continue moving in our direction until 2 seconds has passed where he hasn't seen us, so we hide behind a wall, and in that case we can continue down the line, we can start walking again, we can slow down, we can reset our chase, and we can start patrolling again. So let's see that in action. So if I press play, see he's running at me, he's continuously running at me, but if I kind of juke him for a second, oh, he runs, he's looking at me. We try to get behind a wall. Yeah, so I get behind a wall. Oh, he's after me. He's after me. He's on me. I think his eyesight's real good now. So I think he is always in. I'm always in his sights. Actually, that. Oh, there he goes. So he couldn't see me for a moment there, and he started patrolling again. So it's working. If it's hard to get rid of him, go ahead and lower that sight radius down a little bit. On your pawn sensing in the AI, lower the peripherals a little bit, and then it should be easier to evade him. So there he is. He sees me. Sees me no more, and he is once again patrolling. Great, so it's working. So right there, we basically created what we need to have an enemy that looks for you, and when he sees you, he's going to run at you. Now, the last little bit of this, depending on what you need, we need them to do something when they get to you. We need them to hit you. So we need to create a little attack event. Now, first off, we got to identify kind of where we're going to implement that. So we're actually going to implement that on this AI move to. So when we run it, if they successfully move to us, so they get to our location, we want them to attack. So from here, let's grab another. Actually, before we add that, let's go ahead and just quickly create another custom event, and this will be our attack. So now from the on success, we can grab another do once, because we don't want them to continuously be hitting us, and then we can attack, which will run our custom event we just made. And then let's add one final custom event, and this will be can attack, which will reset the do once. Great. So when we successfully get to the player, we're going to attack. So what's the attack sequence look like? So we're going to do a couple things. First, let's grab a reference to our character movement, and let's set max walk speed down to 200, so we'll slow him down. Maybe give our player a chance to escape. And then we want to deal damage to our player. So to deal damage to our player, we need to adjust our health value in our player blueprint. So if you remember back, first thing we did, hopped in our player blueprint and set up a health value. And then when we started building this out, the first thing we did was create a reference to our player. So now that we have that reference, we can very easily access that player health variable and adjust it. So I'm going to grab that reference to the player. So get as BP third person character. And then from there, I should be able to get player health, which is a variable I created. So if yours is named differently, you'll have to search get whatever the name of your health variable is. So we're going to get the variable, and then we're also going to set player health. So same variable, but we need to get the information first, and then we can adjust it. And we'll plug this in right after our max walk speed. And what are we going to set it to? We're going to set it to the current player health, and then we're going to subtract. Let's subtract 10. So think of this like the damage value. So how much damage does this attack do? We'll plug that in. So we have something like this. Remember, you can double click to add a little reroute node in. So we're going to set the max walk speed, slow them down, and then we're going to get the player health, subtract 10 to it, and then set that as the new player health. After that, we're going to play our attack animation. So we'll play animation, mesh, and this time the animation is our attack. Turn looping on for good measure. After we play the animation, we could add something like a quick print string, just to give us another kind of indication that the attack is going through. So we'll just put attack. And you don't need this, I just like to have it while we're still figuring things out. And then we can add a delay. We'll just add a regular delay this time instead of a re-triggerable one. And we'll set this to 2. This is basically going to be the length of time in between attacks. So if we don't want them to attack over and over and over again. So after we attack one time, we're going to wait 2 seconds, and then we can go back to walking. So we can play animation, set it to the walk, set it to looping, and we're already at the appropriate walking speed, so we don't got to set our speed again. And then after the 2 seconds has passed and we're walking again, we are then able to attack again. So we can run that can attack animation. Great. So, again, maybe one more thing we can do just to make sure it's working well is after we set the player health, let's add another print string and then plug that player health into the print string. It's going to convert automatically. So that basically every time we get hit, it's going to output our current health just so we can see if it's actually going down. So let's compile, let's save, and let's have a look. Let's go find my guy. Here he comes. So when he gets to me, he should run his attack animation. If we look at the top left-hand corner of our screen, we can see it says attack 60, 50. So I'm losing health gradually. And you can see I set up a little health bar in the top right, which also shows me losing my health. Great. And there we go. So now we successfully have built an enemy that patrols, chases us, and then can attack. So it has an attack sequence. So from here, it's really about first identifying what are the needs of your enemy. What do you need them to be able to do? And then, we can make adjustments to this code based on your, specific project needs. As a little bonus, let's say we want to, obviously we're dealing damage, so how do we know when to actually do the quote-unquote death sequence? So how I would handle that is I would basically, after we deal damage, right here, we would do a quick check by dragging out from the player health and then look for equals. And then we can check if this equals 0. So if we've lost all our health, we can then put this into a branch. So if we've lost all our health, we're going to run the true sequence. And if we've not lost our health, we can continue as normal. But if we run true, we could run an event on our player that's the death sequence. So that could destroy the player, open a UI, play a sound, play a a particle effect, any amount of things you want, could happen on an event in our player blueprint. So if we go actually look, just for posterity, if we go grab our third person blueprint, grab our blueprint here, let's actually see if we can do that quick. So here's our blueprint. If I add a quick custom event, and this is called death, and just for ease, we're going to just do a print string that says you have died. You have died. So, in theory, whatever you want to happen when you die, you would set up here. So if we now go back to our blueprint, we should be able to, using our reference here, get the reference, and then we can, let's see, death. We can call the death the death function. Sounds very grim. But again, we can call that because we have a reference to our character. And we would just plug that into the true. So, every time we deal damage, it's going to check, is our health equal to 0? If it is equal to 0, we're going to run our death event that is set up on our player character. If we're not equal to 0, we're just going to continue attacking as usual. So let's go see that in action quick. There I am. Let's go find our guy. Here he comes. So if we watch up in the top left, so he's should be dealing damage. I unplugged the print string that displayed our health, but we can actually look at the top right because we have that. I have that bar set up. Oh, I should stop moving. So, oh, okay, almost there, almost there. Come on, you can do it. One more. You have died. So I've lost all my health. So now that you have died animation has run. So from there, you can, like I said, you can play animations, play particle effects, play sounds. You can restart the level. You can open a menu screen, any number of things. But so that's an enemy. The base. It's a very basic one, but it should get the job done. It should add some interest to your game. So definitely see how you can implement it, and reach out if there's any questions.